Now, in the course of these elections, local and Euro, we, the Socialist Party, welcome the support that has been shown in different parts of the country, as Mick illustrated at the beginning, for other left and independent candidates. The People Before Profit, the Workers and the Unemployed Group in Tipperary, Maureen O'Sullivan in Dublin Central, and probably a number of other genuine independent candidates around the country. We have to say that that outcome vindicates a proposal that the Socialist Party made at the end of last year and pressed again at the end of this year with some of those groups, that there should have been a joint left slate that could have perhaps up to 30 candidates on an agreed left programme, but with credible candidates going into the election as a kind of a testing ground, if you like, for the idea of a more generalised left alternative. We regret that that proposal was not acted on, was refused at the time, that it was not accepted, particularly by the Socialist Workers' Party and the People Before Profit. But we still now, in the wake of these elections, do face the fact that there is still a huge vacuum on the left in Irish politics, and of course in European politics as well. In Europe, the move to the right by the Social Democratic and Labour parties, typified by Blair's and Brown's British Labour Party in particular, has left a gaping hole in reality in the representation of working class people. Now, similarly, we would say in this country that is the case. So we do need a new mass force. We need a new mass party that can extend to every corner of this country and represent the 90%, 95% of the population who are working people, professional, manual, pensioners, unemployed, young people, students, or whatever. We, the Socialist Party, are obviously not sufficiently strong, not sufficiently nationally based to fulfil that role at the present time. Even though we are striving in the areas where we are, we do give an alternative, and we are organised, by the way, north and south, of course, as well. But I believe that we do now, in the wake of these elections, have to progress on how the project for a new mass party can be advanced. Obviously, it's not something that we can simply will into existence. It's not something that happens automatically or that happens quickly simply because it is needed. It takes, unfortunately, somewhat longer time to work its way through, and critically, it takes social forces, men and women and young people, developing their ideas and their consciousness and their seeing need for a fight back against the type of system that we have, and beginning to move into activity, to mobilise in opposition to the cuts, to mass unemployment, etc., and in opposition to the right-wing parties. It takes that kind of development to create the base where such a new party can take off and can become a significant force. Nevertheless, the outcome of these elections, I believe, is a pointer to the future and is an important step in the direction. And in the autumn, we have to carry on and carry forward that discussion and discuss the initiatives that are needed to progress this cause. Now, we are very clear, by the way, of what the left is and what the left should be. Some people who are on the left, for example, would include in the idea of a united left going into the future the Labour Party, Sinn Féin and the Green Party. Now, the Socialist Party will be very, very clear on this question. The Irish Labour Party is not a party of the left. The Irish Labour Party has vacated the left long since, has moved into the realm of market capitalism, and is firmly entrenched in that ideology, similar to Blair in Britain, although it is not as apparent as what happened in Britain. But when you have a leader of that Labour Party, for example, undermining in a disgusting and treacherous way the determination of public sector workers to fight against the levy, in other words the wage cut, that was imposed on them a few months ago in order to resolve this crisis, then you know that that party is not led by somebody on the left. When Eamon Gilmore says in a major article, I'm a paid-up trade unionist, but it will be catastrophic if my colleagues strike on Monday, referring to a proposed strike on the 30th of March, which of course never took place because the trade union leaders bottled it. But in the whole course of the article is to undermine the determination of workers to mobilise their force and to fight back against this vicious government. That is not the action of the Left Party, but more particularly the fact that they are prepared now to line up with Fine Gael to replace Fianna Fáil and the Greens in government, but implementing largely what will be the programme and the policy of Fine Gael. In other words, further savage cuts in living standards and savage cuts in the public sector. There is no future of looking to the left, of building the left and looking to the Labour Party. Similarly with Sinn Féin, which was prepared at the last election only 2 years ago to do a deal with Fianna Fáil if the figures were right, and would have gone into government with Fianna Fáil if the figures had fallen out in a different way with regard to the makeup of the Dáil. The Greens, I don't think we have to argue very much with regard to their left credentials, but it is rather bizarre that some people insist on saying that the Greens somehow would be part of a left bloc. We will be very clear, the left will be made up of those genuine left parties and organisations which have really continued the campaign of opposition to the cuts, of opposition to the crisis, of opposition to the dominance of the market and market capitalism over the past several years. And especially going into the future will demand and fight for and insist on the absolute independence of any new left force that is created. There is no point in creating a left force that immediately begins to look towards propping up one or other of the capitalist parties, the conservative parties of Irish politics, and retreading the tired old road that the Irish Labour Party has tread over many, many generations. The question is to strike out for a majority government of the left against the background of crisis here and internationally over the course of the next period ahead. But we think that it is very important that those issues are discussed out now, because undoubtedly the extent of the crisis and the anger that exists in society make the creation of an alternative really essential. But even more so, we do know from this election that there is a search for an alternative. Okay, it would be untrue to say, and no one is saying it, that a majority of people are suddenly convinced socialists. That if you like, they have drawn the same conclusions and stand by the same programme that we have been advocating for years. That's not the case, obviously. Consciousness develops in stages, sometimes much more rapidly, but we are definitely in the process of a huge learning curve by the majority of our people in this society, by dint of the experience that they have seen over the last few years. And undoubtedly the gains for the left in this election, and in Dublin above all, where we finished up with 80,000 votes, started off I think with 12%, does show a search for an alternative policies to the failed policies of capitalism and its parties. That, in my view, is a very, very significant outturn of this election.